today we are going to be breaking down the mechanics of downward facing dog. You are going to find yourself in down dog a lot in Vinyasa flow classes, and there's a little bit more to this pose than might appear on the surface. So let's get into the specifics. So for today, if you have a block, go ahead and grab it, have it handy. If you don't have one, don't worry about it. You can do everything that we're doing without it. But we're going to begin on all fours. So go ahead and come to that all fours position with your shoulders stacked right up over your wrists and your hips stacked right up over your knees. And we're going to focus on the upper body to begin with, right? So take just a couple of little cat-cows, inhaling, lengthening the chest forward, right? It's that opening across the chest. And then exhaling, pressing and rounding through the spine so you can activate that low belly. And then one more time, inhale, lengthen the chest forward, send the gaze up so you're opening across that chest. And then exhale, press and round through the spine and draw the belly button up so you activate through your low abdominal wall. And then inhale, come to a flat back. And you're going to walk your hands just a little bit further forward of your wrists. So now instead of having a stack, you've got a little bit of an angle. And then you're going to tuck your toes, hug your outer hips in, and you're going to shift your hips back even further, almost like you were going to move into a child's pose. And you're just going to lift your knees like a quarter of an inch up off of the floor. Activate through that low belly, and then lower the knees down to the ground. Okay, give yourself a little shift. And then we're going to repeat that, but draw the attention to your hands. So before you even start to bear weight, press all 10 fingers down into the floor, especially that thumb and forefinger. Firm these upper outer arms in. Shift the weight back and lift your knees, and notice if you feel a difference this time around with your really active hands and arms, right? That is your foundation. And then exhale, lower. Walk your hands back, take a little breather. It's important when you're working with a lot of component parts to kind of take a break and let your brain absorb for a second. Okay, so that's the arms. And then shift yourself back forward onto all fours. So you've got that strong platform there. Walk your hands forward just a little bit. Shift those hips back. Press down through the palms. Firm those upper outer arms in. And then against that inward firming, see if you can broaden your chest, right? So it's like two things are happening at once. So you created a strong platform here. Now you're going to tuck your toes, firm your ankles in, and begin to lift your hips that little quarter of an inch, and then keep lifting the hips, and keep lifting the hips, and keep lifting the hips until you get a red light from your hamstrings, from the backs of your legs, right? So if the backs of your legs are super tight, they might be really bent right now. If they're a little bit more open, you can start to send your heels down towards the floor. So that is the basic shape of your downward facing dog. So give yourself a moment, just get acquainted with the shape, and then release the knees down to the ground and shift the hips back. Pause. Let it settle. And then we're going to bring a little bit more attention to your legs, right? So this time around, you've sorted out your upper body more or less, right? So now we focus on the legs. So if you have a block, go ahead and grab it. You're going to place the block in between your legs. If you don't have a block, don't worry. And then you're going to bring your hands down to the floor. And so you set yourself in the all fours position. Maybe walk your hands a little bit further forward. Shift the hips back, tuck the toes. Squeeze that block with your legs and then begin to lift your hips up towards the ceiling. Send your heels down towards the floor. So I want to start with right up around your glutes, your little booty, right? If you are in a tighter body, when you straighten your legs, you might start to feel like you're tucking your lower back, and it's a little bit stressful and kind of yucky. So bend your knees as much as you need so that you can imagine tipping the hips up towards the ceiling just a little bit so that that low spine stays really neutral. It's a lot. And you may have an opposite problem if you've got a very floppy, bendy body, is you can really overdo it. And so if that's your case, you've got to send the tailbone down and try to shorten the backs of your legs. So once you find that shape in the pelvis, pause for a second, lift through your low belly, and then any amount start to send your heels down towards the floor. They may or may not touch. Hug those outer legs in towards that block, right? Notice if it started to get a little floppy. And then imagine that if the block were to shoot out from between your legs, it would shoot straight to the back of the room. So that means you've got to roll those inner thighs back just a tick so that everything is spread and even. Take an inhale here. And then exhale, lower the knees down to the ground. Shift the hips back. Give your brain, your body a little pause, a little moment to absorb. And if you're digging that block, you can leave it. If you're like, no thank you, you can move the block off to one side. And now we put it all together. So you're thinking about all things at the same time. So shifting yourself forward onto all fours, planting your hands down firmly, all 10 fingers root, upper outer arms firm in, chest expands nice and wide, tuck your toes, firm those outer hips into the block, and then lift the hips up and back behind you. You find that maximum length in your legs, whatever that means for you. Heels are rooting. Little sit bone points, right? That very base of your pelvis is pointing up towards the ceiling. And then you may notice when you start to do this that your hands slide on the mat a lot. One thing that helps start to prevent that sliding or mitigate that sliding is by lifting your low belly towards the spine and really activating through your abdominal wall here. And that's going to keep you nice and protected in this dog. And then notice if you're holding some tension in your neck, right? Release the top of your spine forward towards your hands. Your ears are in line with your biceps. And then as you're in this shape of downward facing dog, it's lengthening the backs of your legs. It's lengthening through your spine. It's strengthening through your arms. And it's really helping you create your hands as roots so that you can move in and out of lots of different postures from a solid foundation. Take one more breath here. And then exhale. Lower your knees down to the ground. Remove that block if you've used it. Sit your hips back and just give yourself a second to settle. So I love a down dog in a flow. It's a great home base. I also love a down dog if I just need like a minute to kind of resettle and re-energize. So feel free to down dog whenever and wherever you need. And if you have any questions, put those in the comment section. I'm happy to answer whatever I can. And if you enjoyed this, hit that thumbs up button, subscribe, and ring that little bell so you can be notified when new tutorials and new flows land on the channel. And I'll see you next time. Bye!